I'm Richmond Wong, a postdoc at the UC Berkeley Center for Long-Term Cybersecurity.
And I'm Tonya Nguyen, a PhD student at the UC Berkeley School of Information.
Our paper introduces timelines, an accessible, low barrier to entry design activity that facilitators can use to help participants think about technologies, social values, and ethics. The activity primarily uses the creation of news headlines and social media posts to create and explore possible worlds. The design activity is motivated by the problem that researchers, industry practitioners, and educators are increasingly looking for new ways to help their colleagues notice and discuss social values and ethical concerns as relevant to their technical practice. We were inspired by multiple approaches to values in design, including values and ethics advocates, value-sensitive design, design fiction, and scenario planning. We also conducted background interviews with UX professionals who act as values and ethics advocates, and they expressed a need for tools to help educate their colleagues about the relevance of values to their work. While a lot of existing work focuses on creating values interventions within the design process, we designed timelines to be an activity that can occur outside the design process.
A skilled facilitator, like a values advocate or educator, can use it to engage their colleagues. We designed timelines to be lightweight in terms of materials, using things like a whiteboard, index cards, and sticky notes. We used an iterative approach where we play tested multiple versions in different settings. We'll quickly walk through the activity steps. First, participants choose or are provided a technical artifact and a social context that they will be exploring. Second, participants generate a range of direct and indirect stakeholders, drawing on value-sensitive design. This is done early on, as we found that this works as a good brainstorming warm-up activity. Third, participants generate a range of news headlines depicting how the artifact gets adopted, appropriated, and contested in multiple ways. Fourth, participants group their headlines into chains that create different stories, drawing on design fiction practices. They place these on what we call the timeline's triangle. Inspired by the futures cone, the present is represented at the narrow point on the left, while multiple futures are suggested as the triangle broadens. This temporal aspect helps participants think about secondary and tertiary effects of their artifact, and consider multiple ways in which the artifact might get adopted and appropriated. Fifth, participants return to their stakeholders from earlier. Participants create social media posts from the perspectives of different stakeholders experiencing the events depicted in the headlines. This then leads to a general group discussion.
We'll briefly mention a couple important reflections, and the paper provides a more detailed discussion. Using familiar forms like news headlines and social media posts are ways to make the design activity approachable to a broad range of people. The activity's seeming simplicity is intentional to try to allow timelines to be used in a range of settings, such as classrooms, workshops, research groups, or product teams. However, the activity also foregrounds several important ways of thinking about values and ethics. We highlight to participants that seemingly divergent or conflicting stories of adoption and use that they create can actually happen in the same world and at the same time, reflecting that the same technologies in real life can be used in multiple and unintended ways. We also try to steer people away from creating completely dystopian or utopian worlds by having them create stories involving both positive and negative headlines. The focus here is on more complex and sometimes conflicting experiences that can arise in everyday use of technologies. The news headlines depict changes that happen at scale, helping explore possible worlds at a macro level, while the social media posts are rooted in more micro-level, everyday situated experiences. Together, this reflects how the experience of values and ethics is affected both by broad, shared, large-scale infrastructures, as well as by local situated conditions. We also note that timelines is partial as a design intervention. Our experience facilitating timelines leads us to recognize the importance of the facilitator in helping prompt participants to reflect. Timelines is designed to be used in situations where there's a skilled facilitator. While the paper is based on our experiences facilitating the activity, future work might investigate how others might facilitate it. Thank you to our colleagues, the reviewers, and our participants. You can find activity resources, facilitation guides, and the paper at tinyurl.com/tlactivity.